part of me has felt rebellious in the past. Well, let me be in control of the situation. I'm getting paid.
I wanted it. I'm in control, bitch. I want to fuck whoever I want.
Like, no, guys, I really did want it.
I feel no feelings. I am okay.
Yes, I really did want it. Told him. No, it's like we're laughing. It's really sad, but it's real.
That's a lie. Did I ever actually think about like what I want and my pleasure?
Here's the thing.
Bitch, what I was trying to say is this situation got me so wet and so dry at the same time. Exactly.
What's up, bitches? Welcome back to another episode of So Wet, So Dry. I am one of your hosts, Autumn. Like the season, I want the kind of love that Fletcher and Shannon had in the Wasted Youth music video, and I work in entertainment.
And I'm your other host, Fiji, like the island, like the water. I am the queen of manifesting right now, and I work in social media and marketing.
If you guys are new here and tuning in to So Wet, So Dry for the very first time, what we do is we explore duality through deep diving topics about sex, relationships, personal identity, all where internet trends and reality collide. We do post polls for every single episode on our Instagram, so make sure you guys are following us at So Wet, So Dry, the O's are zeros, on Instagram, so you can submit a story, respond to our polls, and be involved in the conversation. And whatever you guys are doing right now, whatever platform you're on, please remember to follow or subscribe. Rate us 5 stars on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, whatever. Any way you can interact with us would be much appreciated.
Yes, and today we are talking about sex-positive feminism. We're talking about the waves of feminism that came before and after. We're talking about how this impacts our dating and sex life. But before we get into all of that, we're going to start the episode as we always do, talking about what we're so wet and so dry about in this very moment.
Well, guys, my wet this week is...
Oh, yes.
Flirting with motherfucking AI, bitch, okay? I don't care what you guys say. You guys can make fun of me. It was for research. It was for science. I was curious. But I did get, like, a little into it. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I talked to these 2 bitches at first, and they were, like, kind of boring, like... whatever, but then
What did the second one look like? Because you showed me the first one.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. But the last dude, Derek, who was
dude.
Yeah,
so
he
you
was
switched.
Yeah, I switched. I went to a different site. He's like an anime character who's like blonde with like tattoos. Like low-key the type you like, but he wasn't white, he was Asian. So he wasn't giving like Travis Barker. He was giving like whatever.
Yeah.
So and this guys, he's not real. Like describing him, I'm literally psychotic. I only talked to him once. I haven't talked to him again. But basically, this was like a type of role play that's like very descriptive. And I basically like told him like what I wanted the scenario. Like I told the AI what I wanted the scenario to be, and I wanted it to be like hooking up in like some sort of like locker room where like people could walk in. So that was the scenario, and me and Derek just, like, went back and forth going crazy, bro. And, like, I definitely masturbated after, but I haven't...
After, not during? It wasn't, like, a sexting thing?
Like, it was a sexting thing, but it was kind of like a foreplay, and then I was like, okay. Because, dude, it felt weird.
What was the site? What was the site for the second one?
What was this, like, the girl?
The first one I know you did, Eva, because I tried
Eva,
it, but I
the
didn't love
other bitch's
it.
name... Fuck, I don't remember.
She wanted you to be dominant. She, like, wasn't getting it. She was clearly written by a man. Like,
she was clearly written by a man, and so many of the bitches are. Like, unless you go to, like, a specific lesbian, like, I would chat the AI, like, have you ever been with a woman before? They're like, no. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, yeah.
So
yeah,
that's why I switched to straight.
Are you my daddy, Autumn?
What'd you say?
She was like, are you my daddy, Autumn? And you were
I
like,
was
no.
like, no,
I want
I'm
you
not.
to be my daddy. Like...
Dude, I was like, but I'm not. And she's like, what should I call you? I was like, just Autumn. Like, please, bitch. Anyways, so yeah, AI is funny, but that was for experimental purposes only. You guys can drag me, but I don't care.
Okay. I'm so dry about, I have blisters like all over my feet from like walking. I bought a new pair of shoes. I was like really stupid. They were like, You know, like
Yeah, I
Mary
know.
Jane, like red.
This
They were
is what
so
you do.
cute. They cut the fuck up out of my feet. Like, I should have known, but, you know, I was stupid. And also, since I was flying and I knew it was going to be really, like, hot and dry in Vegas, I started wearing chapstick again. And I haven't been wearing chapstick. I swear to God, it's made my lips, like, so chapped. So if you're not using chapstick, like, just stay on that wave, because like my throat is already scratchy from like the really dry. It was like 108 degrees. Like I had a blazer on, like I was fucking dying. But my lips are so fucking chapped, and like I keep wanting to put chapstick on, but it just makes it worse.
Dude, that's actually fucking tea. Like I've always worn chapstick. I mean, I mostly like to use like Vaseline or Aquaphor.
That's what I was using. It was like a Vaseline stick. I think it was like a cocoa butter something.
Oh, I
one.
love those.
Me too, but it's making, because my lips were really chapped for a minute, and then I ran out of like chapstick or like forgot or something, and they were
bullshit.
good. They
Because
were
I've heard
good.
that. It's like chapstick doesn't really
I
do
thought
what
it was
you
a
think.
myth.
Yeah, I know. But it's probably true. What's
Yeah.
that one's like Blistex or something? Like the medicated ones I feel like work.
I don't know. Because I had like the good like nighttime lip serum stuff that it's like pink, linear, whatever. It's kind of expensive, but my mom had got it for me, and I use that. It makes, I don't know, it makes your lips
that's
chapped.
fucking irritating. Yeah, guys, I don't really know. I'm not gonna spend too much time on my dry, but like it's just like I've just been going through it like professionally right now, work wise.
Yeah.
Just like it's just been hard. I've been crying in the shower, and I just, guys, I don't want to talk about it, but that's my dry. I don't have anything else. Like that is weighing me down right now. I'm dry as fuck about it. But the show's gonna be over in 2 weeks, so
close.
I will be back and ready. But let's get into this episode because we got a lot to talk about. As Fiji said, we're talking about sex-positive feminism. Like, people are saying this is on the downward right now. Is that true? And, you know, there's a bunch of movements that were formed in the 2000s we're going to talk about. But first, of course, we got to define sex-positive feminism. So the overall kind of definition of sex-positive feminism, which there's a lot of ways you could describe it, but overall, it's known as pro-sex feminism, sex radical feminism, or sexually liberal feminism, is a feminist movement centering on the idea that sexual freedom is an essential component of women's freedom. Interesting. So, we asked you guys, first of all, are you sex positive? Because being sex positive and then labeling it as feminism, like they're kind of two different things. And 100% of y'all said you were sex positive. 0% said no.
Really? Wow.
I definitely identify as sex positive, like pro-sex work, all that shit. So...
Yeah, I feel like we've had that be like kind of a core part of like our identities in this podcast. Like we always say like, oh, we're sex positive, like all of that stuff. So yeah, it's interesting that it's kind of on the downward. Like
because bitch, like freshman year of college, like was I sex positive? Not necessarily. Like
Really?
I was kind of like I was always like doing sexual things, but I felt so much shame about it. And I really think I was able, like both of us were able to like enter our like true sex positivity when we like came out as strippers to people and we're like, this is what we're doing. And like, we got like weird vibes, but we were like, it's okay. Like, we know that like, it's okay. Like I felt more confident.
Yeah, I feel like I've always been sex positive from like very young, because like I started doing sexual shit like really early, like ahead of all my friends. Like I was fucking like a ton in high school and then like going into college too. But like I feel like I was always very outwardly sex positive, but like inwardly felt like shame about stuff, or like weird, like internally like feel bad about it after. And it's actually interesting because, you know, like Horrible Decisions, the podcast we talk about all the time, Mandy is like similar, and she was talking about how like now that she's in her 30s and she like was dating someone, they were in an open relationship, she goes to all these sex parties, she was like super sex positive, but she's thinking about like reflecting on a lot of the sex that she's had, and she's like, I don't know if any of it was like, some of it was like that good, or if I really wanted it, or if I just wanted to like reclaim my sexuality. And I identify with that so much.
Me too.
You know, because like I'm so for
like us on New Year's Eve.
Exactly, like so for women being like sexually open, free, doing whatever the fuck you want. But at the same time, like I think there's like a middle ground, and I'm still trying to figure that out.
Right.
You know?
And that's exactly what we're gonna talk about in this episode. And We also asked you guys, are you a fan of sex positive feminism? And 96% said yes, and only 4% said no. So that was literally like one person. And it's a complicated question. Am I like a fan? Maybe not. Am I not a fan? Also no. I think like a lot about sex positive feminism is good, but I think like placing sex positive feminism in the society that we're in just doesn't work. You know?
Yeah.
And that's
like,
kind
I
of
love
like,
it in an idealistic world. And like,
it's great.
Part of me, I don't want to say I'm not a fan of sex positive feminism, because I feel like when I say that, then it's like the opposite. Like, you're in this catch-22, because it almost feels like critiquing it is kind of like, in the era that we've grown up, is a little iffy. So yeah.
Right.
I get
and
that.
It's hard, and it's like, we are going to critique it, but I want us to like have this mindset, and everyone listening, like, we're not critiquing it. We're breaking it down, and like to actually make change and like spread like good sex positivity, like you have to do this. But I know it's like we really just critique everything.
We're building on it.
Right. We're building.
I think we are critiquing it, but it's to create better feminism, you know? Like, we're in this era of like where feminism, I feel like, is going in two different directions, and people hate it in general. So it's like we want to build off of sex positive feminism and create something that's like a little bit less shamey inside and all that stuff.
Less shamey would be fucking great. And we also asked you guys, true or false, sex positive feminism teaches women how to feel sexually confident. 79% said true, and 21% said false. I definitely think it's true. I mean, that was kind of, it's not true.
I don't know, because I feel
wait, let me finish, actually. I'm always thrown off because I think Fiji's smarter than me. Let me finish my thought.
Bitch.
I think that it's true, like they were teaching us about like sort of, see, no,
I get you. Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like they want us to be. Like that's like sex positivity. It wants you to be free and confident and be like, yes, like sex is okay. Like we shouldn't be shamed as women for liking it. But again, in the context of our society, it didn't have the effect that they wanted it to have. Like Khadijah did a video on this, and we're going to talk about it, but she's like, it's not giving what it was supposed to give. Her words, like, that is, yes. Okay.
Yeah, because the confidence part, like, that's what, like, before, I would have been, like, 100% yes. Because I do think it made both of us more, like, sexually confident, free, like, comfortable doing, like, sex shit. But, again, the internal part is the part where I'm like, is it fake confidence? Is it just, like, outward confidence and not really listening to yourself and your body and your mind and your soul and like all of that stuff?
And that's deep where I'm like, as fuck. And to get to that level is like honestly incredible, dude. And I don't think I could have gotten there like without you and like without this podcast. Yeah, because like that's what we do. We deep dive this shit. And it's like looking back at our early stripper days, it's like, yeah, like did we actually want to be doing sexual acts with these men, or did we just want to like feel that freedom and take control? Like I don't know. It's so wishy-washy and hard because we're not taught to like differentiate those things. As women and people, like that is like next level healing type shit.
Yeah, and we already feel enough shame in general that it's like to sometimes critique yourself. Yeah. Like you don't want to, like sometimes I don't want to go back to those times and those places and think about like, oh, was I in the right? It doesn't matter. Like what happened. But I just want to focus on how to like be a better feminist, sex positive woman, healthy in my sex life now.
Me too.
You know? Yeah.
So let's get into some more of defining sex positive feminism. This excerpt from the New York Times says, feminism is supposed to ease some of the dissonance between what women want and what they feel they're supposed to want. Sex-positive feminism was able to do that for women who felt hemmed in by sexual taboos and pressured to deny their own turn-ons. But today, it seems less relevant to women who feel brutalized by the expectation that they'll be open to anything. It's no longer radical or even really necessary to proclaim that women take pleasure in sex. If anything, taking pleasure in sex seems to some vaguely obligatory. In a July BuzzFeed news article headlined, "These Gen Z women think sex positivity is overrated," one 23-year-old girl said it feels like we were tricked into exploiting ourselves. In her 1982 essay, Toward a Feminist Sexual Revolution, Ellen Willis, one of the original sex-positive feminists, described the way that sexual libertarianism, pervasive in the counterculture, failed women. She wrote of men who, quote, intensified women's sexual anxieties by equating repression with the desire for love and commitment and exalting sex without emotion or attachment as the ideal. Somehow, as sex positivity went mainstream and fused with a culture shaped by pornography, attention to emotion got lost. Sex positive feminism became a cause of some of the same suffering it was meant to remedy. And I agree with the part of like, you know, it was able, sex positive feminism, like when it was first kind of originated, was able for women to like, or tried to make women feel less shame about liking different taboos or like just getting turned on by different things. But exactly like the article said, and the woman that said it feels like we were tricked into exploiting ourselves. I mean, that's like deep, bro. Like,
yeah. No, this feels like it hits it like right on the head, because I feel like when we were like growing up in like early 2000s, like middle school, like it was like the kids that were older than us, like we were still pretty young, but it was kind of like a slut shamey culture where it was like, oh, if you like had sex, like casual sex, you were a whore, like all of that type of stuff. So it felt like sex positive feminism was like in direct opposition to that, where it's like, oh no, I can have casual sex and still be like a valuable woman or whatever. But at the same time, in doing that, it's not like we got any sort of like real education on how that affected like our minds, our bodies, our spirits. Like we were just like, oh, like we can fuck whoever and we shouldn't feel bad about it, like from society. But then what about like yourself? And like the whole getting rid of emotion thing is so real, because I do feel like men were like, oh, ew, she's a whore. But then they realized like, oh, I can fuck whatever without feelings. And it almost makes me think that's how we ended up with so many like situationships and shit now, because like it seems like men just want sex, whatever, and then we kind of like we're like, oh, we want sex too, so we give it to them, but like we also like want more. I don't know.
Right. And like, I don't know, it used to be she's a whore and now it's like she's a freak, like she's a OnlyFans girl type shit. Like it's all just like, and that's why men were like, oh yeah, like we're here for sex positivity, like let's fucking go. But like they didn't, you know, realize what their part in that was, and we're gonna deep dive that more. But just more on sex positive feminism, defining it. This excerpt from The Guardian said, "The idea that nobody should be judged for their sexual desires lies at the heart of so-called sex positive feminism. The credo that stripping away the stigma historically surrounding female sexuality will liberate women to enjoy themselves without guilt or shame and help to eliminate the slut shaming and victim blaming that often stops violence against women being taken seriously. The movement is credited with shattering taboos around issues such as masturbation, periods, LGBT rights, and female genital mutilation, thanks to its insistence on women's rights to sexual pleasure. From the gleeful exhibitionism of Love Island contestants to Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion, exuberant sex-positive anthem, Wet Ass Pussy, obviously this was from a minute ago, the idea that enjoying sex is nothing to be ashamed of, in theory at least, if not always in practice, has filtered into women's everyday lives. But if sex-positive feminism champions women pursuing their own desires without feeling judged, it also demands that they refrain from judging the way other people have sex, at least between consenting adults. Now, some are questioning who this free-for-all really serves and how consent is defined in a society where women are still heavily conditioned to please men."
Yeah, this is huge, because like the part where it's talking about eliminating slut shaming and victim blaming,
like what you just said.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely eliminated more of the slut shaming, like for sure. But I feel like it just overcomplicated victim blaming, because then it became like, remember the Me Too movement, which I know we're going to talk about like more consent stuff later, but like Aziz Ansari and like how that was like a bad date, and she felt like people were like, oh, it was just a bad date, like you still like gave in or whatever, like, you know, you wanted to, what do you mean, like you're sexually free? Like I feel like it complicated more of the victim blaming, and still it became this culture of like, oh, well, women are like empowered in their sexuality and they're talking about their wet ass pussies and like whatever, so like they must want it like all the time.
Exactly. And then,
you know,
the like people define you as such, and that's all you are. Like you're
Right.
sexually free, you're confident, you're like having sex, but that's it. You're not smart
Yup.
anymore. Like it's not like layered. It's like that just defines you. And I think for a while, like I was like fine with it defining me, because I did feel empowered by like sex
Yeah.
positivity, and like it's okay to like want to fuck an older guy. It's okay to want to be a stripper. It's okay to have an OnlyFans and be naked on the internet. Like,
Yeah.
it's all cool. But the way that it made me feel, the way that my own partner at the time viewed me, that
Yeah.
shit was not cool. So this is not like, woohoo, like everyone's confident.
Yeah, and it's all the time. I mean, even both of us, both being strippers, both of us being bisexual, like the podcast name So Wet So Dry, the fact we talk about sex, like my name being Fiji, like I feel like all the time we're met with this energy, like especially from men, where it's like you show like openness to sexuality and talking about these things, and they just instantly think like, oh, you're a freak and you're down. And that can be like so exhausting, because it's like, okay, no, that's like a portion of my life and it's very core to my identity, but it's also like I also like to read and like go and
Right.
fucking work out. Like I'm a whole person beyond just like being a freak, you know? And I think men
you are a
just
freak,
don't get
babe.
it. Yeah.
No, but dude, and I don't think you probably even remember this, but I remember like in college, like in our era, like we were codependent, like whatever. Like I remember like, I don't know, because I was like mainly fucking with girls, but like we had
Yeah.
one talk once, like maybe I was like talking or like one of those other dudes.
You can't
And-
say his name.
Oh, sorry.
We'll bleep it out.
Maybe I was talking to like that one guy like from that time or someone else, but I remember you like talking to me, you were like Autumn, like I want you to know that like it's different with guys. Like
Yes.
if you come out the cut with some freaky shit, it's fine, but like they react differently than a lesbian does to that. And I was
Yes.
like, no fucking way, really? Like I was
And
like,
that was the like, I think that was like one of the things that really brought us like so much closer as like friends, because I remember like I was always the sexually crazy one with all my friends, like being judged, like whatever. And then when
like
I'm
me
around
too.
you, like you were, I would say more outward, like sexual, like more outwardly flirty and stuff, but also it's because you're a femme and you're with women, so it was like you kind of had to be. But yeah, when you started fucking with men, I'm like, I don't think you realize like it is a little bit different, you know? So,
Yeah,
like,
you weren't like,
helped
don't
me.
do it, but you
Right.
were like, this is what might happen because men think differently.
Yeah.
And it's like seems so obvious, but like genuinely, when you're in lesbian land, like you do kind of forget like how heterosexuals get down. And like now I definitely know, like
yeah.
I like my ex-boyfriend held one freaky comment I meant about having a threesome with him and his roommate our whole fucking relationship.
Yep.
Like lesbians don't do that. Like we
Yeah.
don't do that to each other. But anyways, and that last part is talking about how consent is defined. So Fiji started reading this book called Tomorrow Sex Will Be Good Again, Women and Desire in the Age of Consent by Katherine Angel. And she put me on. She sent me like a bunch of quotes. She was like, these would be great for the episode. So I want to transition a little bit into consent culture. That's what she talks a lot about. And also later, we're going to bring it back to her and talk about confidence, feminism, confidence culture. So we're just going to read some quotes from her and then talk about it. So Katherine Angel said, post-feminism insisted on sexual assertiveness and sex positivity, on a gleeful pleasure taken in seeing oneself as an object of desire and in inserting oneself as a subject of desire. A woman who failed to declare her desire noisily and defiantly was falling short in her personhood. She was harking back to a fusty, frigid feminism rather than moving forward towards the sexually empowered, ideal subject of the period. in which a gung-ho enthusiasm about sex was a marker of success, pride, and power. In this era of post-feminism, the utterly reasonable claim that women should be afforded sexual freedom, that they should be able to declare their desire loudly, to be perverse and lustful and up for it, slid into the more dubious insistence that women are and must be so. And something of this instance that in the name of sexual equality, women must hold their end up and be assertive, declamatory, unashamed, found its way into the affirmative and enthusiastic consent initiatives.
Yeah, so this is like interesting because I feel like it's almost like, again, that catch-22 where like when you're younger and you're coming into your sexuality and you're like in puberty and you're horny and you're like talking to like boys or girls or whatever, you like want to be like sexual and free, and then you get shit from society or even your mom being like, oh, don't wear that or people are gonna think this, like whatever. So you get this like shame about it and you're like, no, I want to like fiercely own it. And I feel like honestly, even for me, like I was one of those sex positive feminists that looked at some of my other friends who were less comfortable having sex or didn't have sex until later as like, oh, you prude, like, oh, you're like whatever. But at the same time, like, so it's like me kind of shaming them. But at the same time, it's like, I was so young and almost like fake in my feminism in a way, because it's not like I felt completely great about it either. It was almost like a defense mechanism as like, I'm just doing what I think is like normal for me at this age. Boys are doing it as well. But like, I have to be like so extra about it because if I'm not, people are going to talk down to me and say, oh, you're a slut. Oh, you're a whore. So like, no, I'd rather own that first before you can hurt me.
Dude,
you know?
And that's like the shit about patriarchy, right? Like, I'm like, when I was a stripper, like in college, like when we were and we had our friends, I was like, they're so fucking lame. Like, they don't realize how empowering it is to be a stripper. Like, this bitch thinks I stole money from her. Like, they're making me like, and then it's like, now I'm just shaming other women, which is not what we want to do. And that's like what happens with these branches of feminism, like white feminism, like, you know, black feminism, like there's intersectional, like fucking everything. Like, it causes like these like shifts. And it's like, I don't know how to fix that. Like, in a patriarchal society, like, we're not all going to be gung-ho on the same page, but I just think like these labels and like, this is the right way to be a feminist and blah, blah, blah. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. And it especially like, you know, like when you think about like older women and like, because I think about like my mom or like grandmothers or like aunts or just like older girls being like, oh, like, you know, or even me to you, like in that situation where it's like the first time you're fucking with a man or like whatever. And I'm like, oh, you have to be like careful in a way. Like all of that language and stuff like causes you to feel like a type of shame. But then also like as I get older, I'm like, I kind of get it, like the things that my mom would say or older women would say to me, because it's like they know because they've been through it. But at the same time, I don't agree with it because it's like I still want to be sexually free and be accepted. So you're fighting against like everyone to try to like figure out which way is the right way.
Exactly.
But yeah, so she goes on and she says, and urging women to be clear and confident about expressing their sexual desire, quote, it's our duty to ourselves, consent culture, like confidence feminism, risks denying wishfully the fact that women are often punished for the very sexually assertive positions they are being urged to embody. What's more, consent rhetoric doesn't allow for ambivalence, and it risks making impermissible, indeed dangerous, not simply a difficulty in expressing desire, but the experience of not knowing what we want in the first place. Oh my God,
so like,
so true.
Because like that, there was kind of a lot of big words in that last sentence, but like that, like what we were talking about before, it was like, am I doing this sexual act because I genuinely want to, or am I trying to embody what I think a powerful woman looks like?
Exactly. And I feel like especially when you start like young, like, and that's why in some ways I'm jealous of like girls that like didn't have sex until they're like 18 or like whatever, they just like didn't, because I'm like, when you're young, you're doing it, I think, because you want to. Like I was doing sexual shit because I wanted to, but then you get this messaging and this coding, and then you almost lose your agency and you're like acting out this role. So it becomes confusing where you're like, did I ever actually think about like what I want and my pleasure No, I never really had the space to, you know?
Right. And like, I literally hooked up with a guy in high school for like 3 years on and off. And like, I would always suck his dick. Like, what did he do to me? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about my pleasure. It was about his. And was I getting pleasure from that? Absolutely. But like, I wasn't like, that's just not.
It was pleasure in a different way, because I feel like even back then, like, same, I was getting like fucked in the locker room, like from the back, standing up before soccer practice. Yeah. Every day. And I had a boyfriend like when I was like 8th grade, like high school, that was like younger or older than me. I was younger, so he was way more experienced. And it was not about like, I remember him fingering me and it like hurt really bad, but I didn't have any gauge as to what was supposed to be good or right. It was all just about like men coming and like we had no, you know, idea or language really. Like I didn't even masturbate until after I had sex with like at least over 5 people.
I know.
You know, like it's crazy to think about.
It's crazy because I remember like the first time I got fingered, like the thing is like, I didn't like kissing in high school. Like, and now I know I still say I don't like kissing, but I do kiss now. Like, and I do like it more. But back then I was like so anti-kissing, way even more than now. So I told this guy, like, I just want you to finger me, but, like, I don't want to kiss. First of all, how fucking awkward is that? I was literally, like, 14. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. It's broad daylight, like, 10 a.m. in his fucking living room. Like, no parents are home. We're watching TV, and he's, like, awkwardly fingering me. And I was like, this does not feel good. This is fucking weird, but, like, I have to just kind of go with it.
Yes.
I didn't hate him. I was attracted to him, like, we were talking, like, we, like, had a thing going, like, we had feelings for each other, but, like, I was like, this is fucking weird.
And in some ways, it's, like, I feel like when you're young and you're figuring out, like, sex and, like, doing sexual shit, it's, like, gonna be like that to a point where you're, like, I've never done this before, you've never done this before, like, I don't even know really what I, like, want. And so part of me is, like, okay, like, part of that's, like, okay, and that's, like, normal, but then, like, I think about sometimes, like, back then, and I'm, like, no, like, I didn't really want that at all, but, like, I just felt like that's, like, the only way to be sexual was to be sexual with a guy and him leading it. And where's your voice and all of that, you know?
Where is it, bitch? I can't see it. Okay. This last thing from Katherine on consent culture and just, you know, more on sex positive feminism. She said, others prickle at affirmative consent because it still represents sex as something a man wants and something a woman agrees or refuses to yield. It positions sex as an object, access to which women police. After all, consent, even affirmative consent, is still consent to someone else's proposition. Can I do this? Yes, you can. This structure mirrors the worst heterosexual norms. Connell Barrett, a popular dating coach, writes that, quote, a man's job is to escalate and lead the interaction, while a woman's job is to say either yes or no. Holy shit. Anne Cahill, in Rethinking Rape, Riley noted that if marriage and sex were experiences women saw as appealing and desirable, we would not speak of women's consent, but rather of their desire. Oh. Some resist the tenets of consent culture because they bear the traces of this one-sided picture of sexual desire and agency. Holy shit! Yes. Holy shit, dude.
Yes.
That, I need to put that on my vision board. That, you guys, that's fucking everything. How many of y'all have, like, literally deep dive consent and really thought about that? Like, that fucking dating coach asshole, bro. Like, but he's right. That is the culture. Should he be educating people that? No, but, like, that is the fucking culture. And no one questions that. It's just, like, what do we do to survive and not be essayed at this point?
And it's so crazy, like, thinking of, like, consent as this paradox. And, like, we're like, consent is important. Consent is important. But in doing that, like, we're removing ourselves as, like, sexual agents or, like, the ones that, like, go after it and have desire and want it.
Like consent
No, go ahead.
Consent culture is a lot darker than we think it is.
It really, and this part, I don't think I sent you the pictures of, like, these pages, but in this, she talked about, like, how old feminism or old sexual relationships, talked about how like women didn't have desire at all. Like women's desire, women's sexual agency, like women wanting sex wasn't really a thing. And then finally they did this study on like pleasure during like sex between men and women. And they showed that, oh, women do feel pleasure too, just like men. And then they ran with that. They were like, oh, sex positivity, women want it just as much, blah, blah, blah. But what they didn't talk about is that women actually had like a higher capacity for desire and pleasure than men do, which like completely like flips the scale and everything in the way that we think about it. Because like she's saying, like we think about it as a man propositions you and you're like yes or no. When it's really like when you look at our biology and women's desire is greater than men's is. So why are we waiting for them to it's kind of like backwards.
And again, like consent was created for everyone. Like, can men be SA'd? Yes, absolutely. Like consent.
Yeah.
But this, unfortunately, like is the reality for straight people. So it's like, we have to talk about it. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like consent is like across, like I think it's so good that we're talking about, you know, SA, like rape, all of those things. Like consent is huge. But like when we talk about consent, it's so much more often about like women going to college, like, oh, make sure you're safe. Like this happens on college campuses all the time. Like it's much more of a women-centered conversation. And the other thing too, like the reason I found this book, I watched this interview on YouTube. I don't remember like who the interviewer was or the guy, but he was an expert on incels and like who they are, how they are, whatever. And she was like a feminist like woman. And he was talking about, you know, incels, one of their core beliefs is that women owe them sex. And so they have this hatred because women aren't giving them what they want.
Yep.
So, and then she brought up this book and she was like, well, it shows the catch-22 that women are in because it's like, you know, the fact that any man believes we owe them sex is like actually insane. But yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, dude, literally like a week before I went to Emerson, my mom like made me like sit down and watch this documentary on sexual assault on college campuses. And my mom, like, she's like spoke at like colleges around the world about this shit. Like my mom is literally a walking pamphlet for a healthy relationship and has been educating me on them since I could breathe. But when she showed me this documentary, like I straight up was like, I don't want to go. Like it scared me very badly.
And that's the do you have anything in here about the fear stuff or no? Because if not, we can talk about it now.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I don't really know. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because I feel like that's also the reason that sex positive feminism became so popular is because of like the fear stuff. Like I always hated like those types of documentaries, like you need to be careful when you walk home at night. Like the constant, like women need to be scared all the time always pissed me off because I was like, I don't want to feel like a victim.
We are scared all the time.
But like, I like refuse to like claim
that. But you don't.
Well, yeah. I mean, I definitely do, but like that being pushed at you all the time, I feel like is like this extra anxiety that I don't need. Yeah. You know, like I get why we do it, but I also feel like it's a little counterproductive sometimes because like we're raising women to be afraid, like even the man versus bear stuff, like is it completely valid? Yes. But at the same time, like, I don't think the ways that we're addressing it right now with even like these talks just catered towards women about like being safe. Where is the stuff towards men? It's not really fixing it. It's just making us live in fear, you know?
Right. And that was like, that's been a problem like for fucking ever. And it's like, I know that you're scared. I know you feel that fear. Like we all do. But I just mean like you're someone that like you walk around at night confidently. And I look at you like, oh my God, like she's good. But inside might be like.
Definitely. I mean, how can you not? Growing up as a girl from like a young age, you're told like, be careful around older men. Don't go out alone. Like it's like a second voice in your head, like constantly. But like, I don't know. I feel like we have enough to be anxious about. Like, I don't like to like let that voice be too much because I think it holds us back too.
I think it does too. I think it's not. Again, it's not giving what it said it was going to give.
But at the same time, like devil's advocate, like even talking about the sex positivity stuff and how like it's hurt us in some ways, maybe I need to listen to that voice more. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's a lot of rebellion energy that comes with all of this shit.
Yeah.
And like wanting to go against it and like maybe sometimes wanting to not be safe. Like, I remember
Yeah.
that when I went with that guy and you took a picture of the license plate, like, that was me, like, wanting to, like break that, something that I'm so scared of, like, to, like, overcome that. Like, it's
Yes.
so weird, you know?
Yes, you want to get out of this like reality that we're in where it's like you need to be afraid and you just want to be like free. Because I feel like both of us, like throughout college and every time we get together, like we love an adventure. Like we love a free moment where we're just like forgetting like real life society. But I feel
this
like
is
a lot
just
of
the Matrix, guys. Nothing really matters.
Like we all want that, and especially as women, like I feel like you feel this like confinement all the time that like you want to rebel, but like rebelling also hurts you. It's
because it's almost like you feel like it's inevitable that something is gonna happen to you bad from a man as a woman. So it's like part of me has felt rebellious in the past. Well, let me be in control of the situation. Let me like have something bad happen, but like I'm getting paid or I'll whatever.
Or I wanted it. Like I'm like giving enthusiastic consent or going with it.
Like, no, guys, I really did want it.
Yes,
I really did want it.
Like I was in control. It's
I told him. No, it's like we're laughing. It's really sad, but it's real. Like that is fucking real. So I'm glad we talked about that.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't know about Khadijah, you definitely should. What the fuck's wrong with you? But we love her. We definitely like she educates us a lot, like for these episodes. And in general, like that's just the type of content we like to enjoy. But anyways, so they put out a YouTube video that is called "Are We Turning Away from Sex Positive Feminism?" And I watched the whole video. I'm sure Fiji's seen it like before. This was from like, I think it was from last year. But I just want to summarize it. It was such a good video. We'll definitely link it down below. You guys should go watch it. But she basically just kind of covered it all and talked about early 2000s was the time for video vixens, pop culture, girlies, and like everyone was ridiculed and slut shamed, like you said at the beginning. Like there was a lot of shaming towards women at that time. In the Me Too movement, you know, we're not going to deep dive like the history of Me Too because that's not this episode.
We've done it enough in other episodes.
Yeah. But it first started in 2006, you know, and it pushed women to give enthusiastic consent. Mm-hmm. It was the college campuses. There were slut walks, Harvey Weinstein. There was
Pussy
a lot
hats.
that led up to it.
Yep.
And give enthusiastic consent and also be confident. Like that was in that Me Too era as well. And then in 2014, there was the girl bosses. And Khadijah's like, this was mostly white women, but like other people liked it too. And post 2010s is when celebrities started kind of more announcing themselves as feminists, which before it's like they weren't doing that. Like feminism was not.
Beyonce's feminism, she had like feminism show up in the,
Right, exactly. And then she talked about Kim Kardashian. So you look at Kim Kardashian back then, it's like, she's a girl boss. She's working hard. She learned how to profit off of her body and build herself an empire and profit off of her body, not as a physical labor, but as an object of desire / a commodity, all Khadijah's words. And this was kind of, you know, this kind of fell out within the early 2020s because the celebrities that are sort of like having this brand of feminism, like Kim K, like they live in gated areas. They have security guards. They have protection. And it's like, that's, you know, that type of job is like, it does kind of require a little bit of being scandalous, but like everyday women don't have those same privileges of the gated community and like the protection. So she was like, sexual desire versus sexual access hits a little bit differently when you don't have clout on your side and celebrity status. And so she's like, all of this is like Gen Z's moving away from sex positive feminism. And it's also a lot because of hookup culture and what we've been talking about. Like, literally, it's like, I'm going to get in my bag. Let's, you know, she talked about, I'm going to catch flights not feeling.
Yeah.
Like, I just want him for his dick. Like, all of that. Let's use men for money. And, like, don't ever call me again. I just want dick. And, like, it all just kind of is now exploding in our faces. So that was my brief history. But I just feel like overall, like, we've had a lot of shifts, and are we going in the right direction? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess that's what I want to ask you. Like, I feel like every, like, sort of Me Too was, like, great. Like, we needed Me Too to happen. There
definitely.
was legislation involved. Like, there was things that, like, actually had, you know, needed to come out. And it's like, but with the Harvey Weinstein, it's like, you look at the film industry now, nothing's changed. Like, literally nothing's changed. So it needed to happen, but it didn't do what it needed to do. And then people online were like, let's be girl boss, or no, let's just fuck men and make money. Like, so everyone's kind of confused, I would say.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, Kim Kardashian, I feel like really is that, like, icon in the perfect space between, like, sex positive feminism and also, like, low-key corporate white woman girl boss success, because, like, she had the sex tape, so it was, like, sex positive. She was, like, posting all these naked pictures, but then she's also very, like, if you watch the show and every interview, she's like, I work hard, like, my schedule's crazy. Like, she very much pushes, like, the businesswoman shit. And it's interesting because I was at this conference like this week, and I was talking to the woman I traveled with is like 65, like she's like a grandmother, and she was telling me, like, she was like, it was only like maybe 5 to 8 years ago that like women could start dressing down, and even guys and stuff, like you used to have to wear like full like business pants, like heels, like jackets, like it's become a lot more casual. But I feel like
she looks at you like, what the fuck?
Right. Well, now she wears sneakers and she's like, I don't care. Like, you're lucky, don't wear the heels. Like, she was telling me, like, don't. Like, it's more relaxed now because like, back then it had to be. And I'm even looking at her, like, for her to be at the age that she's at, being a woman in, like, sales and going all these places is kind of, like, iconic, because back then, like, women did not have the same, like, status as men in the workplace. And the Harvey Weinstein, all of that stuff, like college campuses, was all in the work environment. So it made a lot of sense to talk about like consent, sex positivity, and what women are wearing or whatever. And also like, what was
so true, babe. It's in the work environment lens is where it was created.
Yeah, it's like very corporate and like white, because you have like more access to like money and like power. And then in the music industry, it's like you said, like you're completely protected because you also have to appeal to the masses and you're making like music, so it's whatever. Yeah. But for us everyday like people, it's a little bit more confusing because like, yeah, like Kim Kardashian can wear like a blazer with like a crop top and like a really low cut top to go meet the president. But like I can't wear that to a business conference. Like there's like differences, but it's who she is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lost my train of thought and what I was going to say next. But I think it's also like confusing for like Gen Z in the era that we're in, like post pandemic, because it's like, while that was all very like corporate workplace, which like sex positivity is kind of like direct opposition to the corporate workplace. So it's like women of our age cannot do that when you're a corporate worker. Plus, most women in our generation don't really want to do corporate work. Like people are working remotely, or they want to be artists, they want to be creators. Like there's much more of a push to work for yourself.
They want to work from home.
Yeah, like have different gigs. So like that brand of feminism doesn't even really like fit right with like where our culture is like actively participating in.
I know. And culture changes and shifts so rapidly. It's like, look at what's happened to dating with like the dating apps and all of that, and the Instagram and everything. It's like, it's hard. Like your feminism needs to be like within the context of society and like what's going on right now, because things are like ever changing, and like it's exhausting. And like I don't think it's bad that people wanted to like be like, let's catch flight, not feelings, for a little bit. Yeah. But when that lingers and becomes so trendy that like everyone is like, I just want to fucking get money, like I just want to like whatever, like fuck him, like it's like, look at what's happened to dating, look at the situationships. Like it's fine to like be free like that, but because we have social media and like these things called trends that go so viral, and people feel empowered and like it's good, but it's just like it's not giving what it was supposed to give.
Yeah, because like you're being told like, oh, you can profit off of your sexuality, like OnlyFans is a thing, like you can profit off of it, like all of this stuff. At the same time, like dating apps, like we talked about in the Bumble episode, like Bumble's pushing like girl boss or whatever, but a lot of the other dating apps are pushing hookup culture. So it's like, I feel like in all of this that's going on, it almost like moved too quickly that we're like, oh yeah, like this part is cool. But in like doing all of this, we're still like intimidated by the other people or like not in touch with our emotions. Like,
yeah. And you have hookup culture and people are like sex positivity, yada, yada, yada. And then they move away from sex positivity and you get celibacy.
Yep.
You get soft life.
Trad wives.
Trad wife. Like, it's like, it's so one extreme to the other. And
Yeah.
like, I know it's hard to have a balance. I know. And I know it's frustrating when you've been wronged by men. You've been harmed by men before, like physically, emotionally, sexually, everything. But it's like, there needs to be a balance. It can't just be like all or nothing. Like, it honestly needs to be a combo of like soft life, like getting what you deserve, but also like treating people like, you know, empathy and shit.
Yeah, because I think it's also just the fact that we're still like, I was thinking about that so much when I was like at this conference this week because I'm around all older people. And it's like back then there really was this like monoculture. So like they look at like someone young like me that has tattoos or my nails done or whatever, and they think one thing. Like I think our generation is becoming more like, oh, there's different types of people. There's different sexualities, different
Don't
like
judge a book by its cover type
races,
shit.
ethnicities hang out with each other, like all of those things. But like the older generations were much more like, this is your path to life and like this is it. So like even though like I feel like we're in the process of creating what's better, our generation is gonna fall back into like what the generations before us were doing. And that's why I think trad wives is becoming more of a thing, because girls our age are like, oh, I tried the sex positivity shit, didn't work for me, so I'm just gonna do what my mom did because like she seems happy now, like, you know.
But is she yes, 1000%. We're gonna get into confidence feminism now and circle back to the book Tomorrow Sex Will Be Good Again, Women and Desire in the Age of Consent. So Katherine Angel said, confidence culture's way of talking to women in the tones of a cheerleading friend, exhorting positivity and self-realization, you go girl, may be no bad thing. And sometimes that galvanizing self-talk in the bathroom mirror can help. And yet this way of speaking to women skirts evasively around a glaring problem, that women are often punished and criticized. They are bitchy, bossy, angry for precisely the confident, assertive poses and behaviors they are being asked to cultivate. What's more, these exhortations of positivity keep vulnerability anxiously at bay. They render insecurity or lack of confidence as ugly, abject, and shameful. Something any self-respecting woman would not feel, or at least not express. There is in these modes of address an almost manic insistence on strength. They are at great pains to present women as almost heroically invulnerable. Sarah Ahmed describes this zooming in on confidence as implying that girls are their own obstacles in the way of themselves. As Gill and Orgad put it, if confidence is the new sexy, then insecurity is the new ugly. Is this hierarchy of feeling helpful?
Like, no. This is so real. And I was thinking when I was reading this book too, I was like, damn, because I get annoyed by all the other, like the girl boss, like everybody else. But like, I feel like inside my own head, I do this to myself all the time. Like, I am very much like, you have to be strong. Like, you have to be like, da-da-da-da. Like, yeah, the insecurity thing, like, ignore all insecurities. But like, I do feel like with TikTok, like, women are owning their insecurities more. And even Charlie XCX's album, like, which
I listened to it. I listened to it.
Okay, did you like it?
The one that was like symphony something, that's my favorite.
Okay.
She's like, I'm gonna put a gun to my head. Like, it was mad, like, crazy.
Okay.
I was
so she's talking about, like, in the interviews I watched about the album, like, she's talking about how she's like the party girl, like she loves to party, she loves to have fun, and like one of her friends just had a baby. She's like, do I want a kid? Is it too late? I hate myself. I'm jealous of these other girls I go out with. Like, she's talking about her insecurities, and how she's like a bad bitch at the forefront of this music movement, but like she still hates herself, and like also like the
just
pressure
like what
to be
Meg
nice.
Thee Stallion and SZA have talked about in their songs too.
Exactly. SZA is like the queen of being comfortable talking about her insecurities and owning it. And like, I feel like it has been better in the past couple years where women are like, we don't need to put on this face of like, I'm confident, I'm perfect, like all the time. Like,
and this
me and
podcast,
you in college were like that. Yeah, we've always been like, okay, we're gonna be in bed depressed, ordering Uber Eats and like hating ourselves for 3 days. And then we'll emerge and get everything done. But like, that's reality. Like, that's human shit, you know?
And I think like I'm really lucky that like I was like, and it always comes back to how you grew up, especially like too. But like I was always encouraged to cry and like be vulnerable, and I cried a lot. Like I cried many white girl tears throughout my life. Like, and people like that's what. Anyways, so it's like I have that. I got that piece down. I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. Like I'm really not. But it's the inside part of like I'm not afraid what other people think if I cry. Like I will literally like if I'm crying, like I'll still go to the grocery store and just like wipe it off. Like I don't give a fuck. But like, do I feel bad about it inside? Yeah.
It depends for me, because I feel you. Like when I was growing up, like I was very like I would cry pretty easily and like be sensitive. And like looking back, I'm like, that was definitely early signs of mental health issues, because was it anxiety? Was it like, because you know sometimes it's like, are you good? But I think it's that I was always putting so much pressure on myself to be. Because I do think my parents, like my family was a little bit more like, no, you keep that shit inside. Like you show your best face to the world. Yeah, like you have to like present yourself in a certain way. And like if you're going to deal with your emotions or be sad or be whatever, you better deal with that shit and don't bring that shit around like anybody else, you know, like kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's like anything, there's a balance. But like women with our emotions too, because it's also, oh, women are emotional. Oh, women only think with their emotions. Oh, women are too sensitive. So then you want to be like, you know,
it's fucking exhausting. Dude.
I think I'm definitely guilty of this type of feminism, though. I think I need to, as I was reading this book, I'm like, I need to unlearn this and honestly finish the rest of the book.
The confidence piece.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we're going to go on and read the next part. This is talking about Rofi and Kipnis arguments. It says, in their critiques of campus sexual culture and #MeToo, they are holding at an arm's length a figure whom their confidence feminism renders intolerable and shameful, the woman who is hurtable. In the morning after, Rofi
That was good.
Wrote. Rofi.
Oh my God.
In the morning after, Rofi wrote with impatience about women who cannot put a man, quote, in his place without crying into our pillow or screaming for help or counseling. Her distaste for vulnerability is palpable here, for this teary province of trauma and crisis. These accounts privilege an idolized, gutsy woman who knows what she wants and can shout it from the rooftops. A woman who can simply set aside the imbalances of power and pleasure in the world, accessing and voicing her desire with confidence. Here, then, is the paradox. Both the insistently positive language of consent rhetoric and the insistently scornful positions of these critiques come out of a post-feminism movement and a confidence feminism where weakness or insecurity must be avoided at all costs, where self-expression and poses of sassy confidence are imperative, and where individual self-work will ward off sexual violence. Rape culture and responses to it are privatized. I feel this
is like
too.
a lot for me.
Like, I want to be that woman that is gutsy and will say whatever she wants and be like, don't fuck with me. Like, I know what and I think I can be sometimes, but no, because I also think I'm a complete people pleaser. Like, I also think I'm acting in the sense of like, oh, like, no, this is what I want, I'm going with it because I want to pretend that I am that gutsy woman when I'm not. I don't know if any of us really are.
Right.
Know?
Like, is that something that we can even really measure up to? But I think like, because I know what you mean. It's like in your romantic relationships and even like your friendships. But I think in general, if a stranger were to check you, like you would bite back. Like you have that like confidence about you, and maybe you don't feel it, but I see it in you.
You do too, especially with strangers.
Oh yeah, especially definitely. Yeah. No, I definitely have it. I do, and like I think honestly, like being a stripper and like having to like constantly say my boundaries, like it helped me. Like I was, that was, again, putting myself in a situation that could go bad, but I was in control of it and making money. But I don't know. And then, because you think about like the sad girl, like fucking aesthetic on TikTok, where it's like they're feeling their feelings and like they want that, but like it's not real. And overall, like even the way she said the confidence poses, and you just think about like Instagram and how like I see a TikTok of someone, like it looks like they woke up early, they're confident, they're outside in a bad bitch outfit. Like I don't feel bad about myself, but like I wish that was like me right now. So it also like, again, it's like you have this like like shame for the other people that aren't on the same wave as you. If you're super sex positive and you're looking at someone that's a prude, you're like, what the fuck? And if you're someone that's super confident, don't let men tell you anything, you stand up for yourself, and you look at a bitch that's been cheated on and stays with him, you're like, something's wrong with her. Like, it's like, it's creating, Yeah,
it's like also a big like, it's like the duality, and it's like the wet and dry of it all too, because like we said, like you can very much be like this, like I can too, but it depends on the situation. Like even when we're stripping, like we talk about all the time, like, oh, like we wish we were those types of strippers who were like actually able to, be able to go through with it and stay in that life and make that money and do all of that. But like, it didn't work for us. And so like, we're always going to look at those types of girls as like, oh, that could have been us, but I wasn't strong enough. But then there's another girl that's going to look at you and be like, oh, like, I wish I was strong in that way. So it's like,
I wish I was strong enough to leave. I wish I could leave. I wish I had another choice.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly. Like we're always looking after this like ideal of this perfect, confident woman who's just like living in her full truth while pleasing society.
Like it's all that shit. That's confidence fucking rhetoric or whatever she said. Like that's confidence culture. Like the whole like baddie core, like don't give a fuck about these men. Like don't give a fuck about these bitches even too. Like it's so individualistic, and like obviously we live in the US and that is very US, but it's just, I don't know, it creates like bigger walls, and it's just like if you really break it down, and I'm still thinking about like how consent is like darker than we thought, and like the fact that we need to be sex positive and like announce that we like sex as women is crazy. Like
and it's also makes you keep bottling things up, like how you said it's so individualistic. Like when we think of like girl boss era and like corporate white woman success, like Whitney Wolf Herd, like she had the sexual harassment case. She's working with this billionaire who's clearly a sex offender, but she's acting like it's not. It's like you're bottling all this stuff up and you're not really helping other women. You're only focusing on your own success. So it's like, it's not really feminist. It's very like self-centered, like trauma
and like
response,
some
really.
Type of survival mode-esque type, like, and just for you, like, it's very, exactly. I know, that fucking Bumble shit is crazy. So way back at the beginning of the episode, we talked about how like sex positive was born into a world that, is pornography is a big part of our lives, and like it impacts dating. So there was like an anti-porn sort of movement on TikTok. So we're just going to transition into that a little bit. So this article said, in March, Vox's Rebecca Jennings reported on the spread of the cancel porn movement on TikTok. It's just one facet of conservatism, for lack of a better word, that's proliferating on TikTok from rather unlikely sources, she wrote. Young, presumably progressive women who think that what's sometimes called choice feminism caters to patriarchy and the male gaze. Jennings quoted the caption to one video, "Liberal feminism telling young girls that hookup culture is liberating, conditioning them to think that if you don't have extreme kinks at a young age, then they're boring and vanilla, and encouraging them to get into sex work the minute they turn 18. And I have to say, when OnlyFans came out, there's so many bitches 17 years old counting down the days till when they turn 18, having Instagram stories of my birthday's in this and I'm gonna make an OnlyFans. Like that,
and that's the insane thing, because it's like I used to get so triggered by this type of content because I was like, it's on the conservative side of things. And like, even when they talk about, you know, like there's a lot of movements about child pornography to cancel like porn, where it's like that they say that that's what it is, but it's really conservatorism. I can't say that word right now.
Yeah, fuck that
but
word.
I don't know, like we're somewhere in the middle, because I agree with this. Like I do agree that like sex positive feminism, we are like perfect examples of how it's like we, you know, joined it to reclaim it, whatever, and then developed some trauma from it because like we weren't doing it in a way that was like grown enough or thinking it through enough to be like completely like ready for it.
And can
like,
there be completely healthy sex work in a patriarchal society? Maybe, but you'd have to be pretty fucking selective and careful.
Like, and that's the thing, because I was watching this one YouTube video where this woman was talking about, it was this book called like Women on the Right or something, and it was talking about how like women on the right just don't subscribe to the belief that like sex positive feminism is really good because liberal men are actually the worst or something, because they're actually taking advantage of women more.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting argument because like I don't agree with so many conservative women, because like, you know, we're always put at odds against each other. But like I feel like it's worth having like conversations more with like women as a whole, because I think there's truly a middle ground where like they are right about like certain things after going through it. And I think that's why a lot of like OnlyFans girls, strippers, ex-porn stars like literally do a 180 into the trad wife life. And I don't think that's the like the way to go backwards. Like I don't think that's the key.
Right.
Neither one is correct. But there's somewhere in the middle where we can like respect ourselves and like not feel shame, but also like have desire. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like, do I think that 18-year-old girls should be shamed for wanting to have kinky sex? No, absolutely not. Like that's the whole thing I really do stand for. But in turn, it's like feeling this pressure like you should, because this is the confident women. This is the feminism we should all subscribe to. Like what we're saying, like that's scary. Like that's not what I want. Like I would never even say that I agree with someone that's conservative, because I'm stubborn and I'm not at that point where I've unlearned things yet. And I'm like,
well, and this is like one belief of many that are also very bad, because then you get into like the layers of it, and it's like, oh, on one side they're like, oh, you shouldn't be sex positive because like it's really the men that are taking advantage of you. Like, okay, like I can get that. But then like you peel back other layers, and then we get into anti-abortion, like all these other things. So that's why I'm like still iffy.
But again, it's like I shouldn't do something because men are a certain way. I'm never going to subscribe to that belief.
And I think it's more about like the education around it and the preparedness. Because if a girl wants to start an OnlyFans at 18, like maybe we would have at that age. I mean, we were in college, not much older stripping. Like we probably worse. And I do think like part of it was the culture at the time that made us want to do that. Like the era that we were in. Like I feel like, you know, how much of it is who I am as a person versus the society I was brought up in. Is it the chicken or the egg? Like I don't fucking know. But like people are always going to want to do what they want to do, and like I feel like that's what it should be. But the education and the especially sex and relationships education,
like, to just throw women to the wind and be like, be sexually confident, like have your pussy out, and like
when we've
not
never had that before,
right? And not educate you, like that's unsafe. Should you have your pussy out, and like not pussy out, but like should you be dressed with a lot minimal clothing? Yes, of course. But it's like, again, like Kim K can do it, but like if you're an average civilian in society, like yes, you can still do this and project this sexually confident, but you need to be educated on like if you really want to do that, or if you think you should do it, and B, like the patriarchy and what happens to women when they do that.
And have safeguards in place. Like there's going to be risks. You're going to like, I'm sorry, but like you're probably going to, unless you have completely thick skin and you're this confident woman, confidence feminism that like is this ideal, which I don't think is achievable,
impossible.
Like Kim K,
right?
Then like you're gonna need a therapist. You're gonna need like healthy coping mechanisms. Like you need a good friend to talk to. Like
yoga subscription, psychiatry.
Yeah, like you can't just go to the strip club and act like it's not gonna affect you, and not just
and that's what we did.
Club, but just go fuck whoever the fuck you want and act like, oh, you don't have feelings. Oh, you don't want an intimate, like a emotional connection. And like
do you really feel that way? Or do you feel pressured? That's what you should be. And all of this, like, what is the ideal woman? Like, this is always the problem. Like, even when it's supposed to be good, you're still like telling, it's just, you guys.
You know, you know what I would pay for that? Like, you know how Kim Kardashian, I feel like, is really the face of like a lot, and even Beyonce to a point, like, but they like never are really like vulnerable, or Kim K is vulnerable in a way that is like so packaged to you. Like, she's like, oh my God, I'm like so stressed, like whatever, but like never really gets
the vulnerability piece.
And she said like she's never had a therapist like ever. Like, and she doesn't need one because she has good friends and they have a tight-knit family. But, like, those icons, because I think someone like Charlie XCX.
I think she still needs one.
Yeah, like SZA, like these other people are being more vulnerable. But someone like Kim K, like, she's been fucking through it as far as, like, the media goes and, like, hate towards her, whatever. And she's profited off of those things. But, like, it's just, like, someone like her would be so interesting to, like, peel back. But at the same time, like, we're the public. We're not entitled to, like
how does she feel going to bed at night? Like, we don't know. Right. And should we know? No, that's her fucking business. Yeah. But it's just like, to be like, this is like, look at me, look at what I'm doing, but not talk about the repercussions and the hate. It's like, and she has a little bit on the show, but again, it's surface level. She's not like being super real. And I also wanted to just read some stats because, like, Gen Z is, like, apparently, and, like, not surprising, one of the most, like, sexually fluid, like, / maybe kinky generations. Yeah. So talking about, like, you know, feeling pressure to be kinky from a young age, like, this is something, like, Gen Z is doing this shit. This article says Gen Z is the most sexually fluid generation yet. Only 54% of its members define themselves as exclusively attracted to members of the opposite sex, compared with 81% of baby boomers, and is arguably the most adventurous. More than 1 in 10 teenagers claim to have had anal sex by the age of 18, according to the UK's authoritative National Survey of Sexual Attitudes and Lifestyles. A third of British women under 40 have experienced unwanted slapping, spitting, choking, or gagging in bed, according to research carried out for the pressure group We Can't Consent to This. While women who enjoy rough sex have an absolute right to pursue it without shame, the normalization of pain in porn may provide cover for some abusive men and make women feel prudish for refusing potentially dangerous acts like choking. A lot of young men have co-opted BDSM, bondage, discipline, or domination, sadism, and masochism. They're not into power plays and consent. They just like hurting women. Wah, wah, wah.
That's like perfect for our like doming episode if you guys
I know, we just kind of talked about this. Yeah, exactly. But it's veiled. Like, again, emphasis on you should not feel shame if you like rough sex. You should look, and even me, like, I'm like, rough sex, I'm a fucking freak. Like, I need to look in and be like, do you really like that? Yeah. What is that providing for you? Is it giving you empowerment? Is it giving you adrenaline? But at the end of the day, like, sex is kinky, but it is supposed to make you feel safe, no matter how crazy the bondage is. And, like, I don't know. So,
and that's the thing, because it's like, I've always been someone who loves to flirt. I love sex. I love going out and, like, being, you know, PDA, like, all of that stuff. But, like, I've come to realize, like, as I get older, that it's like I really only enjoy sex the most when it's with someone that I actually care about and actually, like, love. And that's, like, for a while it was so hard for me to come to terms with, because it feels so counterintuitive to, like, the way I've been living my whole life. I mean, I've had, like, a lot of long-term relationships, but, like, I've had a lot of meaningless sex. And, like, I would frame it in my mind as, like, oh, this is, like, what I want. You know, like, this is, I need this outlet, but at the end of the day, like, did I even come? Did I even enjoy it? Like, did I like the fun freeness of it? Yeah. But maybe not. And, like, even just, like, I think when we put men first and all of that, like, I've started being more like, oh, like, I'll make out with them when I'm out and I'll do the little, like, foreplay, but then, like, not fuck them. And that had worked, like, so much better for me, because I'm like, that's the part that I enjoy. Like, I don't enjoy that. I enjoy that part, and then we get back to my place, his place, whatever, and we fuck, and then it's disappointing sex, and then I realize I didn't really like him the next day, like, then I feel bad about myself. So it's like, but it's taken me, I'm 26, it's taken me 26 years of like over 10 years of sex to figure out that like that's something, you know what I'm saying? Like it takes us a long time.
And
as
why
much
is
as,
it
like,
so hard?
And why? But I think like Gen Z is like push like OnlyFans, like all this stuff. But like I've also heard about Puritans. Have you heard about that being a thing? Like Gen Z is like wants to be abstinent or completely celibate.
Yeah, that's the flip side. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like both. Like on one side, like the sexuality thing is great because I think there's a lot more like sexual fluid literacy. Like we are more accepting of like bisexual, pansexual, like
demisexual,
queer,
like that was something it talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, but the anal sex thing is kind of surprising to me. I'm still very anti-anal sex for myself, but you know.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna try it one day for sure, guys. I've only had like fingers or whatever.
Same.
But I have to try it once. Like if whether it's
I'll try it, but like for me that's like
I understand. Like I also think
partnered.
For sure. Or someone I guess it's long-term partner.
Anal is one thing that if they ask me, I'm like, fuck no.
No, that's
like,
how
that
I am with
something...
eating my pussy. Like, no.
Yeah. Like, you know your limits. But, yeah, I don't know. This is a tricky one.
So now we're going to deep dive a little bit more on how all of this shit we've been talking about impacts our dating and relationships. So, first of all, we asked you guys the poll, true or false? Sex-positive feminism calls on men to be respectful sexual partners. 87% said true and 13% said false. Here's the thing. It's not that it's false. Like, I do think that maybe somewhere there's been like a word or two about it. But for the most part, sex-positive feminism is from women's perspective and what they should do, how they should be encouraged to feel. It's not a direct call to action, as we say. What's the call to action in the paragraph? That's not it. And I'll tell you how many fucking men on Autumn's Instagram were like, yeah. Mr. fucking Mans from Emerson, the tall one that I talk to sometimes, or like he was all like, I'm sex positive, like this is what, and I'm like, dude.
Like, are you? No, because I agree. I 100% honestly think this is false. And I was thinking about it because I saw everybody voting in it, like, and it's coming in, and I'm like, this is a lot of truths. And I'm like, do they think we're quizzing them and this is the right answer? Like, I think they think the right answer is true, which that would be nice. But like,
that's the
positive
goal.
Feminism has nothing to do with men. I don't think it's all about women.
Unless you're critically thinking about these things, you're not going to think, well, why is this all about women? Like, why aren't men like a bigger part? And this has been the same shit since Me Too. Like, why is it all about women and what we like? It's continued. Like, we're not getting away from that, and that's the problem. And we also asked you guys, does sex positive feminism negatively impact your dating and sex life? And 21% said yes, and 79% said no. And again, I just think like it is, but you don't think it is directly, but it is, you guys. It definitely is.
It is. And this is the thing, like me 2 years ago, maybe even last year, maybe even when we started this podcast.
Maybe even last week,
maybe even
for
6 months ago, I was like, no. I was like, it does not because I'm like, I'm in control, bitch. I want to fuck whoever I want. I feel no feelings. Like, I am okay. That's a lie. It's a complete lie because it has nothing to do with me. I mean, no, I will say like women shame other women. So like, I think like that does have a part to do with like it negatively impacting your dating life because like other women can be like, oh, you shouldn't fuck him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that outside part of things, but the stuff it's all from men is the bad part about sex positive feminism, I think.
1000%. And this listener submitted and actually said, I don't know. I just find that me being so sex positive can get me in sticky situations sometimes.
Yes.
And it's like so fucking true. And the way that this individual is like able to recognize that is huge. Like,
huge.
That's what we all need to be thinking about. And is this person saying I shouldn't be sex positive? No. But it's important to notice what happens when you are. Because it's not sunshine and daisies like Kim K or whoever makes it seem like.
Yeah, and I was so happy. This is one of my friends that submitted this. And it came in like pretty quickly. And I was so happy to see this because like honestly, like it's a paradox. Like especially with us doing this podcast sometimes because it's like on one side, I'm so sex positive and like so like I want to talk about sex and like relationships and all that stuff. But like the attention that I get from people when the first time I tell them, oh, I have a sex and relationships podcast, or people in my DMs, like guys or like even girls and stuff, sometimes it's like, oh, I wish I was that liberated. Oh, you must be a freak. Like all of that is so draining and exhausting that I feel like it has had like a pushback in some senses where I'm like trying to rethink. I'm like, there's no way, like we're still doing this podcast. Like we're going to get that fucking regardless. But I'm like, where is the world in which me and you just getting on the mic and talking about sex as women, to predominantly 80% of our audience is women, where in that is there the space to like, you know, talk about the dry side of things too, which we do all the time. But the initial thought is always like, you're a freak, you're down, you're crazy, you're out there, and it's exhausting.
And I don't know if this is like a reach, but the way people like message you and like us and are like, I can't believe, like I'm jealous, I wish I could be sexually liberated like that. It just reminds me directly of when like a person with a bigger body posts online. People are like, I wish I had that confidence. Like, that's not a fucking compliment.
And it's also like, I get imposter syndrome because I'm like, I'm not. And that's what I want to stress to our audience all the time too. Like, me and Autumn were just talking about this off camera. Like, I want to study gender studies eventually. You want to be a massage therapist, like trauma, like health in your body. And it's like, we want to be more educated and aware of these things. And we have, through the podcast, learned a lot. But like, we are not perfect and we are not like complete role models on a lot of this stuff. Like I don't feel like I can confidently say like I'm a completely sexually liberated woman who owns my sexuality 100. No. Like, do I have the confidence to get on a mic and create content about it to try to create a better community? Yes, we do. But like, are we there? No, we're trying to get there with you.
Exactly. Know? Yes. We have the confidence to go on the internet and like share our deepest, darkest secrets, say that I fucking fucked an AI and masturbated. But do we edit the podcast and think very critically about things we say? And even if we feel like what I said is true to me, that's my truth. But how is that going to be perceived? We are always thinking about that. Like,
and it's a risk. Like, I mean, we think about it with our jobs, but our dating lives, like, but I think about all the time when I meet guys for the first time, like, are they going to be okay with me talking about sex, with me talking about dating? Because our predominant culture is still not like accepting and cool with like a lot of that stuff. So like not just your dating life, but like your entire life, I think sex positive feminism affects it.
Right. Agreed. And circling back on Khadijah's YouTube video about this, it's like this whole, kind of thing like caused an even bigger gap between women and men. Men were happy about the sex positive part because they're like, hell yeah, sex positivity, but they're not doing the work to be sexual partners. And it's like, Khadijah's like, we need to ask men to hold themselves accountable and learn. Like guys it's not common knowledge for a man to know about female anatomy, and things like that. It's like, but it's also women focused. And this part was so funny because Khadijah was like, women are educating themselves. Women have seen Me Too and they've been like, I should be this, or I should be this, or why do I feel this way? And so she's like, lesbian sex right now is like 10 out of 10. Like you take two like sex positive women that are healthy, like their sex is going to be amazing.
You have toys, vibrators are a conversation.
And so I just thought that was funny. But for straight people, like it's just gotten so much worse. And
bring up a vibrator to like 8 out of 10 men, unless they're a little bit older and like sexually experienced, they're going to be like intimidated by it. Like,
and people will get mad. Men in the comments will be like, no, like I love vibrators, but you don't understand. Like there's a lot of men feel so fucking in their ego that they don't want anything that doesn't involve their dick or their fingers.
Yeah.
Like, I was lucky that my ex-boyfriend was down to do that shit with me. I was lucky.
Yeah. And I think they are definitely like getting better with being like more explorative, like with like intimate relationships and stuff like that. But like when it comes to like you going on a couple dates with a guy for the first time, like I still can't get over them just always thinking that like, oh, I must automatically be down. Like, you know, like that stuff, because it almost makes me want to not be like in direct opposition. Like I actually had a guy.
And that's
like
what causes the celibate. Exactly.
And I did that. That's exactly why. Because I was like, no, like one for me, I wanted a safeguard to be like, I'm not going to give in. So I'm making this commitment to myself, because I think that's another huge part of it. Because as much as us women are like, educating ourselves and we're very aware of these things, like we have all this stuff in our head, but when it comes to actually practicing and using your voice in certain situations, when you're dealing with someone who is much less educated about sex positivity or about feminism or like is a man, it's way harder to be put into practice in the real world. But yeah, I don't know.
I know it's extremely hard. And more on this from the Guardian article. This excerpt says, in her book Block, Delete, Move On, published this month, Lala writes of her gratitude to those who fought for women's right to enjoy sex, however and whenever they want, but her refusal to be judged on the number of people she has slept with. But while the endless supply of potential hookups provided by dating apps has been great for women who just want casual sex, she argues, it has downsides for those seeking long-term relationships. Quote, since sex has become easier to get, she writes, love has become harder to find. Through her Instagram account in the dating column she writes for OK Magazine, she hears regularly from women tolerating activities they don't enjoy in bed for fear of being rejected for someone more than willing. An age-old story, except that those sexual norms are now set by pornography. Quote, sexual liberation is great, but in some ways we ran with that and then ended up in a model of sex that has been created by men, says Lala. We have got the part where it's, you can do this without judgment. You don't have to be married or worry about unintended pregnancies, but we're not balancing that with the education or that sense of what sex really is. How should it feel? When should you do it? How should you do it? Like, you guys, like, Fiji didn't know this was in the article. Like, that's literally what we've been saying the whole time. It's like, we got part of it. And that's why at the beginning, it's like, I don't want to say I'm not a fan of this, because there are good things about it. It's nice to feel comfort in exploring your body in more ways if you want to. But it's like the outcome was never made possible. It was never set up for us to really have success in this sex positivity, because we're in a patriarchal society, and unfortunately, like, we can't control that.
And that's why it's so tricky, because I go back and forth between being like, oh, it's the men that are perceiving sex positive feminism wrong, which I think 100% it is. But on the other side of things, it's like we like went into this era because it was the natural progression. But in doing that, we're doing the sex that like patriarchy has told us. We need to relearn ourselves. So how are we going to teach men before we relearn ourselves? And even in doing the education, it comes down to the real life practice. Like, that feels like it takes so much time. And I understand why so many women are going celibate or refusing dating in general.
I was just going to say, like, is that the answer? Like, because they are learning about themselves? Or because there's one thing to be celibate and focus on yourself and learn about what you want sexually, emotionally within a partner. But it's another thing to be celibate and protest because men are bad people. That's not what we want.
Well, and that's the exact thing. Like, because I went celibate, you've been celibate. Like, we
not
both
by
have
choice.
like.
I'm an incel, deadass. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, bitch, you could if you wanted to, but you don't subscribe to the like. You don't want that. You're right. You know what I'm saying? Like, but. It's that catch-22 because, like, I know we're about to talk about the 4B movement. So maybe we should just talk about that first, and then I'll say what I was about to say.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to transition into the 4B movement. This was something that we have talked about in an earlier episode. Fiji said I didn't remember. I didn't really know, like, the full story. So this article from The Guardian said it was titled, "From the boy sober trend in the US to the 4B movement in South Korea, more and more heterosexual women are giving up sex." So in South Korea, there's a viral 4B movement, which gets its name from the 4 types of bi or no. So there's bihan, no heterosexual marriage, bicholusan, no childbirth, bayune, no dating, and bisiku, no heterosexual sexual relationships. In the US, Gen Z comedian Hope Woodward has started a boy sober trend, which involves straight women eschewing dating. Multiple studies show that around the world, more and more young people seem to be quite happily opting out of sex. So I just wanted some like backstory on like where this trend kind of came from, but we're also going to watch a TikTok about it. Let's watch 2 TikToks back to back. What the first one is someone like explaining it, and the second one is an opinion of my favorite fucking bitch on the planet, Drew Afualo.
Straight men need to step up their game and relationally with women, or they are going to be pushed out. We really are seeing this play out in real time through the 4B movement. If you're not aware of this movement, it's a radical feminist movement that originated in South Korea, but it has gone global in recent months. And the focus of it is decentering men, but in a very hardcore way. Straight women specifically are committing to not only never marrying men, but never being in relationships with men or dating men, and more significantly, to never having sex with men. And we are at a very interesting point in history now where sex toy technology is so good that women do not need men in a sex context. And there's obviously been a trend for a while now of women committing to platonic life partnerships, which is where they move in together with a best friend of the same gender and have a completely but committed lifelong relationship, because they are finding more meaning in that relationship and more connection and support and validation than what they are getting through their relationships with men. I think for so long men have seen it as some kind of threat that they can make, like, well, you need men, like what will you do without us? But women are literally at a point where they are so fed up that they are saying, we don't care. We are just really sick of men's shit. This is the consequence of toxic masculinity. This is the consequence of this whole alpha male movement that was led by the likes of Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson, telling men that women need to go back to traditional gender roles. Women need to go back to the kitchen. Women can't have only pages. They can't have Instagram accounts. They can't wear certain items of clothing. Women are just like, that. We're just going to do us. And if the human race dies out because we're no longer procreating, then so be it.
A lot of y'all have been asking me my thoughts on the 4B movement. Here's my thoughts. Fucking period, bitch. You do what you gotta fucking do. You know what I mean? The 4B movement is honestly proof, if we're operating just within the gender binary, that women have far more power than men have ever led you to believe, bitch. And not just when it comes to popping out fucking kids. The greatest weapon men have crafted is the belief that they're better than us inherently, or more important. The 4B movement is proof that's not fucking true. I've said on here before that nothing unites mediocre bitch-ass men faster than getting to talk shit on a bitch they do not deserve. One of the most evil and sinister things about the patriarchy is that it will try to convince you that if you're anything but submissive, if you don't dim your light for a man, you're gonna die alone, because no man's ever gonna want to be with someone like that. And I'm living fucking proof that that's not true, bitch. Suck a dick. Preferably mine. Eat it, bitch. Also, I talk a lot about this in my book, bitch, called Loud. Accept nothing less than the life you deserve. Hold out for the man you actually fucking deserve, bitch. I promise it's worth the wait. And if for some reason you don't find him, being happy, successful, and alone is better than being with some mediocre bitch that works at State Farm. Love you. Bye.
Okay, so I have so many feelings about this, and I honestly don't know what's right. Like, I agree with them and I disagree. Like, I like Drew Afualo. Autumn likes Drew Afualo way fucking more than I do. I think she's completely right. Everything she said about, like, don't dim your light. Like, women have more power than, like, men say we do or even we think we do. 100% correct. And I think that's how you get incels who are in a weird way saying like women have this power and they're withholding it. Like, you know, like it's so evident, and you see it in these movements and so many other things, that like when women come together, like we really do have power. And even how she said she's living proof of like holding out for the right man, and like, you know, she found hers. The thing that's a little bit iffy for me is that like the 4B movement, one, it started in South Korea, so it's a different culture and it's a lot different going on there than it is in the US. And I don't know enough about like gender politics in South Korea besides this movement to completely comment on the actual movement itself. So
Being,
I'm only
like,
really
created, right.
Yeah, but I'm only gonna really comment on like American women adopting it in the US and our culture, because I don't think I have the right to in South Korea. But like, one, the thing that the first woman said is like, this is all about, you know, men don't deserve us. This isn't right. They're not getting it. Like, we need to like separate ourselves and live in our power, like whatever. And even Drew Offwall said like, you know, waiting out for the right guy. But like, part of me is like, I think Drew Offwall is a little wrong, because the whole movement in itself is withholding from anything to do with men. So it's not waiting it out. It's stopping completely. You're not like sitting around like, oh, I'm waiting for, at least to my knowledge, you're not sitting around waiting for the right guy to come and like completely impress you. You're like abstaining from dating in general.
Right.
So like, I don't think that really like applies like in what she's saying about like her relationship. Like, it seems like a little bit backwards, but I do kind of believe in the whole like being like celibate until there's a man that comes around that deserves your energy. Like, I feel that for sure. And like,
I think there's probably like a mix of people.
I know, but like the other part of me is like, there are good men out there, but it's just, I'm just like, I don't know, when we talk about this in other episodes, like, is it men completely that are the problem? Are men the problem? Are men a big problem? Yes, 100%. But I think we're the problem too.
And so does Khadijah.
Like, and knowing we don't know ourselves.
Yeah.
And so like, when we're saying we're abstaining from all this stuff, I think it's important to use the right language. Like, is it 100%, oh, it's fuck men, it's because they don't get it, we're gonna do this? Or is it because fuck men, they don't get it because we've given them, because of patriarchy, the wrong image of ourselves, and so we need to relearn ourselves before we engage with them and teach them how to learn us?
Because even the simple fact of us being like, throughout this episode, did I hook up with this guy because I really wanted to, because I wanted to feel sexually empowered? To the guy, all he's thinking is because you wanted to. If you are actively engaged, like, how would they ever understand or know that? And it's like, obviously, like with, you know, it just like with rape culture and SA, and it's like, we have to remember that like all types of humans can be predators, and like that stuff I get, like fuck men for real for that, but also like, yeah, like it is the patriarchy and it is on women to like learn themselves, you know?
Yeah, and I think like, because part of in the Katherine Angel book too that we didn't include in this episode, she talked about like how this like patriarchy and the sex positive stuff, like on the other end of it, is a little bad for men as well, because like on the other side of things, well, women have to give consent. They're like the receivers of this inquiry. Men are supposed to be like these pursuers constantly. And I had actually, I forget who it was, like a guy that one of my guy friends I was talking to, and I was like, have you ever like regretted sex with a woman? Like, have you ever been like, I wish I didn't do that? Or like, you know, because with women, it's very common, I feel like, for us to be like, feel bad about it. And he was like, yeah, definitely I have. But he was like, but guys don't want to say that as much because like, that would be weird, or that would be gay, or that would be like whatever. Like, I think even our understanding of men and their understanding of themselves as well is also warped, because I don't think it, like, not all men are bad people. And it's so like hard to say this in this climate, because it's like,
I know.
We're not men's rights activists. Like, we are not like men's apologists, like anything like that. But like, the patriarchy affects both of us, because like, it's oppressing them and it's oppressing us. And I feel like the key is really just like getting to know ourselves better and raising our standards.
At the end of the day, regardless of the politics of it all, this fuck men mentality is not working.
Yeah.
Like, can you really sit with yourself and say, yes, this is like feeding my soul in a healthy way to hate men. No. And that's enough to want to go and like learn yourself more and figure out, you know, it's like, fuck everything else. Like, this mentality is not working. And being celibate to learn about yourself, or being celibate just because you fucking want to, is amazing. That's incredible. Being celibate to rebel against men is not the answer. It's not the answer.
Pushing us farther apart.
And like whatever, do what you want to do, but it does create a gap. It does. Like, it, unfortunately, the fuck does.
Yeah, and I want to be like, if you're listening to this, if you're a listener and you're someone who's practicing 4B or practicing celibacy, like 100%, like, I support women's choices. Like, you need to do whatever you think is right for you, and you're on your own journey. But I just think, like, as a culture, we need to, like, stop living in these binaries. And that's, you know, the whole point of the podcast, duality, like, wet, dry. Like, we need to, like, exist beyond, like, oh, you're either a trad wife or you're, like, an OnlyFans girl. Like, there's somewhere in the middle, and, like, we need to be able to self-reflect as well as hold other people accountable. And I think what's tripping me out in this whole thing, too, is the confidence feminism. Because it's like, I want to be careful not to be like, oh, it's just on women to, like, learn ourselves better and be more confident, and then, like, be in the driver's seat and teach men how to treat us and all of that. Because that, again, puts all of the work on women, and it makes you need to be this, like, idealized version of a woman that, like, I don't think we're ever going to get to. But that's why all the more reason for, like, us to engage with men, because it's both of us that need to learn ourselves better and each other.
Yeah. And, you know, are men maybe less willing to learn? Yeah. And it's fucking frustrating as fucking hell. Like, it fucking sucks. Like, we know that, but it's like, at the end of the day, like, men need to be held accountable. They need to be educated just like women do too. Like, isn't that the goal? You know what I mean? And as we approach the end of this episode, like, we did put out this final poll about sexual liberation. And we asked you guys, do you think true sexual liberation is actually possible? And that's kind of how we're going to close out with our wrap-up segment, focusing on that question. But you guys said 50% said I'm not sure. 37% said yes. And 13% said no.
Like, this is tricky because it's like, are we talking about for an individual or for a culture? Because I think, like, the, like, you create your own reality thing, and even Drew talking about, like, you'll find the right guy. Like, I've come to realize more, like, that I can create who I surround myself with, and, like, the environment that I'm in, to a point. You know, you still have to engage with the rest of society and work and stuff. So I think it's possible to, like, feel sexually liberated in yourself and your choices and the decisions that you're making about your sexuality. I think yes, but as far as sexual liberation for our culture, I think we are very far from that. I don't think I would be, I mean, it'd be great if we saw that happen in our generation, but I think there's a lot that we need to do to get there.
Yeah, I think in sexual liberation with a culture, as a culture, is the goal. Like, being sexually liberated, like, independently manifesting your own reality can only take you so far. Like, true sexual liberation and what that feels like is the community experiencing it alongside with you and the rest of society. And I'm not too sure about that. And I do want us to keep talking about this idea, but we are going to move into our wrap-up segment, like I said. So talking about what we're wet, dry, and confused still, maybe a little bit about the topic and just this idea about sexual liberation as a whole. And I'll go first. I mean, I'm definitely, like, I don't know if you guys can tell, but Fiji and I are definitely passionate about this shit, and it definitely sparks our interest more than, like, maybe other things. Like, this is, like, real life shit, and, like, when they ask you, like, what does happiness look like, to me, like, it's this shit. Like, figuring this out, like, being involved in it, and, like, just as simple as talking about it with other people. People don't realize how much, like, interpersonal conversations, like, is protest, like, is change, like, is, because that, like, that's what we need to do. We need to talk about it and, like, educate ourselves. And so I'm definitely so wet about all of that. And I'm just, like, the whole, like, middle ground thing, the duality, being confident, but also being educated and knowing the society that you live in. Like, that's the part that makes me the most wet. I know that it is possible. Like, true sexual liberation, I don't know. But I do think we can, at least in this generation of like Gen Z, millennial, like be okay with duality. Like we're starting to kind of get there, like with TikTok and certain things. But like it is so like with these movements and structures of feminism, it is so like this way or the highway. This is the right way. This is the ideal woman.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, same. Like, I'm so wet about, like, honestly, this topic because I feel like this is a very core topic to, like, our podcast, and it's a conversation that's ongoing throughout episodes. So, like, it was a really good one for us to do. And, like, exactly, like, just talking about it more, like, with each other. Like, hopefully you guys comment, like, engage because, like, this is really, like, the community we want to build. And also just, like, I'm wet about, like, the individual personal journeys that like we're on and also like with this podcast because I think our perspectives have changed like so much. And I think that also has a lot to do like thanks to like feminism being like a focal point in our culture despite it being girl boss era, Me Too, like all these different movements. Like
it's
women are more at the center of like culture and conversations, and I think that's a really good thing because there's more space for us to at least like agree, disagree, critique things without us having to be like, oh, you know, back then it was like, we had to all agree on one thing to get like voting fucking rights. Like now I think there's more space for us to like critique feminism and ask for it to like go further.
Yeah. It made mainstream. Like it's mainstream. Yeah.
It's so mainstream, but like I'm wet about like the journey that like I'm on like individually and like figuring this out because like I think I used to feel a lot of shame about it internally. And like it would lead to depression and all of those things and like act out like sexually and then be like I don't know, like, but right now like I'm comfortable in the place that I'm at, and I think this podcast really provides that space for me to be able to work through it myself and alongside you and like our community. So like that makes me feel really good, you know?
No, honestly, like it's really just been so healing and like really nice to just like, because we don't have to put out an episode, right? But we want to. And it's like in order to do that, like we need to educate ourselves to make an episode. Like that's literally what the whole thing is about. Like, and you guys, like we're not like, I don't know history facts off the top of my head. Like I've been learning shit. Yeah. But I guess I'm definitely dry, like what we talked about, like the men apologists and like, just like the whole thing of like, that's also so like duality too. It's either like, fuck men or like you're excusing men's behavior. And I used to be so guilty of that. Like I maybe even have said stuff like that to you like 6 months ago about like, yeah, but like men have a book, like what, but like you're, and I would never call you a men's apologist, but there's that mindset of like, if you say anything that's close to an excuse for men or just even a reason as to why they are the way they are, it's like, you get shamed.
You're not on the right side. You're not on the women's side. You're not
on the right side. And that's a horrible feeling in already such a like fucking
divisive,
what's the word?
Like culture? Like a binary culture.
But like
binary, like divisive, like culture.
Yeah, like it's already so hard enough and then you have that shit too. And like, you know, true sexual liberation, like, again, if you asked me that in college, I'd be like, yeah, I'm sexually liberated right now. Like, I didn't know shit. Like, I really didn't. And, like, I really don't think it's, like, completely possible, at least right now. Like, I honestly think it needs to be, like, over 100 years if that was going to happen.
Yeah, honestly, I feel the same way.
And that's dry.
Me, like, sad. Like, yeah, I'm same, like, dry about, like, because it's like in this one weird way, like I say it all the time, but like we have social media, we can have these conversations. There's a lot more like content and like people engaging with each other, which I think like we talk a lot about like learning yourself individually, but I think you need community and you need to see yourself in other people and other people's experiences to like be able to even know that that's possible. But on the other end of that, there's like these algorithms that are so designed to feed you exactly like what you want. And like, that's how we got, you know, the election and everything like that. Like it's becoming the ads market, like marketing that we kind of talked about in the dating apps episode. It's pushing us farther away. So it's like this weird push and pull in society where it's like, we're having bigger conversations, but then we're like going in opposite directions. And I think unless you're someone like us where you're like researching it, you're being a journalist, or you're like creating media about it, like, are you really engaging with like the other side completely? I don't always think so. And in my own life, like in intimate relationships, like I get triggered in the same way. Like you say you've done it to me, but like I never really take it personally. Like I think we have like such a deeper relationship where it's like I'm not gonna be like, oh,
and you've been in my situation. You felt that same thing before.
Exactly.
So you're not like, oh my God, you're like, okay, like
I'm like, I get it. Like, and it's okay to disagree, like, especially because we have the foundation of friendship. But like with other people that you meet for the first time, like I can hear someone say like one thing and I associate that with like right women, like women on the right, or like conservatism, and I'm like instantly like judging them and I don't want to engage. But it's like when we talk about stuff like this, we're like, oh, like these conservative women are close and they have a point on some things, but then we're completely on the other end. But for us to move forward as a fully sexually liberated culture, we need to engage somehow on the other side, but then you want to create your own reality. Like that part is so dry to me because it's so hard to navigate.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's gotten to a point where it's like conservatism is like triggering for some people. Like people that are like, you know, not like legal immigrants in this country. Like it's unsafe for you to like interact with those people. Like some people literally feel that way. And that's so fucking real. But it's like for people like me, where like, yeah, if Trump gets elected this next election, like maybe I won't be able to marry my wife one day or get an abortion again. Like the Project 2025 is like absolutely insane if he gets elected. But at the end of the day, like I'll be okay. I'm not scared for my life. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. Like as a white woman that looks straight, I'm not. But some people really are. And it's gotten to a point where it's like triggering to be around Trump supporters for people. Like that's so real. And it's like, what are we supposed to do? So it's like, that's what I'm confused about, you know?
Like, and where do you have empathy and where do you, like,
where do you draw the line?
Where's the line? Because it's like, definitely, like, if you're in danger, if someone's threatening, like, your identity, if someone's being, like, sexist, homophobic, racist, like, you don't need to, like, understand them and pull apart, like, no. But there's, it's so
but in turn,
in our culture with regular people.
Yeah, but maybe that one experience, like, you meet another guy that looks like him and you're instantly triggered again. Like, that has, like, a domino effect. And then it's like, we're just so polarized in general. And it's like, oh my God. Like, it's literally exhausting. And like true sexual liberation within yourself, I think is possible to an extent. But the rest of it is confusing on how we get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm confused about, because I said, you, like, in yourself it is, and I feel like it is, and I want to believe it is, but then I'm like, is that confidence feminism? Because then you still have to engage with the outer society.
Can't spiral. Like, we can't spiral.
I know.
We can't spiral, babe. I know.
We can't go down this rabbit hole. But yeah, I'm confused about everything pretty much like we've already said. Like, and I think this is a topic that's gonna like consistently like just come up in all of our episodes because this is the culture we live in right now, and like we're trying to make it better. And I really think
it's good that like we don't just get our sources from the internet. It's like Bell Hooks, Terrence Real, Katherine Angel. Like, I really like to incorporate like literature into it because also it's reminiscent of college and like those days. So it kind of feels like nostalgic, but it's just important to get a full picture. And then you see a TikTok of someone, like there's a lot going on and there's a lot to be researched. And even that can be kind of scary sometimes. Like, you can go, I'm like, what is this source?
Yeah.
But yes, but that about does it for this episode, guys. We hope you liked it. Please let us know what you thought in the comments below or DM us on Instagram. If you are on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and like this video. It really would help us out. And if you're on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, anywhere else, please give us 5 stars and give us a follow. And as always, our DMs are open. You can email us. Our email is in the outro of this video. If you have any topic, ideas, or, we love chatting with you guys. So any way you want to engage, we are here and ready to talk.
Yes. Also, we do have this thing called a creator spotlight. We haven't been doing them recently, but if you guys are some sort of artist, creator, if you have a business and you want us to spotlight it in the episode, we do like a 1 to 2 minute segment. So hit our DMs or email us if you're interested in that. We also do have listener support, which is the only way we currently make money from this podcast. Even if you're not listening on Spotify, it's at the bottom of the description for every single episode. It is 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. It really helps support us, get better equipment, trips to see each other and produce better content, all of those things. Rate us 5 stars. We love you so much. We will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1,000% believe in? I'll go first.
Okay, so I am absolutely convinced that Bumble takes old profiles and puts them up in other locations and has bots run them. There have been a couple of times where I've matched with someone with a completely legitimate looking profile, and then I message them, and when they respond, it's odd. Not in like a creepy way or anything like that, but like I don't think you're human, like I think this is AI kind of way. Anyway, y'all are welcome to contribute evidence to the contrary or in support of my weird conspiracy theory, because I certainly have no evidence except for like a gut feeling. And I'm pretty sure like we live in this dystopian AI world where that could totally happen. And Bumble, if you'd like to refute it, yeah, hit me up, let me know.